Welcome to Exploring Possibilities. I'm your hostess, Sheryl Sitts. It's my intention in this show that we demystify holistic wellness and raise our consciousness together, one practitioner at a time. You're going to meet some of the amazing people that I've encountered on my journey, and you'll notice that their stories are a lot like ours. There are so many ways that we can heal ourselves and our planet, so enjoy learning about all the possibilities, and then you can reach out to anyone that you feel resonates for you. I'd love it if you'd reach out to me as well, and you can do that on my website, where you'll also find all the other episodes of this podcast, www.journeyofpossibilities.com. Also, you can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and never miss a show. If you do that, also do me a favor, please, and rate us, because we want other people, listeners and guests, to find our podcast. So please rate us, and thanks for doing that. We'll introduce today's guest right after this from our sponsors.
Hi, this is Mario with Tech Life Balance, and I've been in the IT field for about 20 years. I have a big range of experience. I've worked with PCs, I've worked with servers, I've done online marketing strategies, I do websites, I even build online communities and help produce the podcast that you're listening to right now. I've actually been involved in IT so much that I got lost in all the technology, and technology was taking over me. And I'm not saying to unplug or anything like that. What I'm saying is find a balance. I know I did. It took a traumatic event for me to learn that capability, and it was a challenge. And there are obstacles and there's things you run into that sometimes you don't realize you're even doing. So I designed a program to help you do that by looking at all your technologies and just helping you embrace it in a way that it's smoothed into your life. And I like to say that we log in, log out, and break free so we can have life. Contact us at techlifebalance.net and let us know what we can help you with. Enjoy the podcast.
Ladies, when I'm not doing this podcast, what I really enjoy doing is working in private sessions with you. I love helping awakening women, and that awakening can be galactic, spiritual. We're all in it together. And I love helping you if you feel like you're getting stuck or something's holding you back and you're not real clear what that is. I'm kind of a portal for possibilities too, so together we can explore what's possible for you and how to get there from here. We can work remotely by phone or Skype with our spirit guides and angels using things like divination cards, dowsing, and channeling. Together we'll get clarity and insight on exactly what's holding you back and how you can move forward now. Live, we can also incorporate Reiki. I love doing Reiki because it opens blocked pathways for physical release and healing. It's all about helping you live a joyful, awakened, authentic life naturally. Contact me anytime at journeyofpossibilities.com. It's really exciting to watch this show grow, and we've now got thousands of listeners from the Texas Gulf Coast and around the world. It's a perfect opportunity for you to be a sponsor. Your advertisement will be heard every time the podcast is played, and it'll be a permanent part of the episode. Why not be a sponsor? Contact us at www.journeyofpossibilities.com. Today's guest on Exploring Possibilities is Lloyd Mear, who is a civil engineer. And I found Lloyd through a network of referrals, and I became immediately fascinated. My background in civil engineering and surveying from many years ago, and noticing that he incorporates dowsing in his work, and then learning about how he uses numbers for healing. The website is balancingbynumbers.com, and Lloyd's assistant, Christine Danye, and I have actually had a lot of communication back and forth to facilitate today. Unfortunately, Christine can't be with us, and I am just coming on the backside of tonsillitis. So I am bringing in my wonderful producer and everything, Mario Rosales.
Hello, everyone. This is my first kind of hosting the entire show. Thank you, Sheryl, for allowing me this. And we do have an excellent guest, Lloyd. We're so excited to hear about this. I was reading about everything that you do with the numbers. And then I came to discover that you were a civil engineer. And how does a civil engineer come to work with numbers for healing? Did I understand that right?
That's correct. That's the basis of it. But civil engineering is sort of a basic engineering of, buildings, roads, structure, earth structure, whatnot. So it's not that far-fetched to think that a civil engineer would, in fact, develop a mathematical answer to a lot of the reality of life. And so it's along that line that this all evolved, but more particularly, I had a drastic need at the age of 60, although I had been engineering all my life up to that time. At the age of 60, I had a heart attack. Very interesting situation in many ways, in that my heart attack developed when I was 60. My father had a heart attack at 60, and my year-and-a-half younger brother had a heart attack at 60. All of us survived and went on to live. My brother is still alive. My father has long gone since perished, but did live many years after his heart attack. But during the healing and trying to continue on in life, I basically had to learn how to cope with the condition that I was left with, and the ongoing angina problems that I had were very restricting in what I could do. So I ultimately had a quadruple heart bypass, and prior to that, I had 4 stents placed in my circulatory system around my heart, and with the quadruple bypass, it basically allowed me to get back to more normal pace. But during that period of time of recovery and leading up to the quadruple heart bypass, I ended up learning how to look after myself and how to basically continue to live without the aid of the medical fraternity as we knew it. I decided I didn't want to do the drug component, and so I learned how to develop aid to my own body. But a lead-in to my own health situation was done just prior to my heart attack. I'd spent probably about 15, 20 years basically in the exploration and development of gold mining. I mined in central Yukon, northern Canada, in a physical sense, and were very successful in extracting gold from the ground. And then some years later came further south, away from the frozen north, and taking on opportunities that might exist in southern Canada, and certainly more in northern United States, northwestern United States more specifically. And in learning how this all happened, it became apparent to me that it was all done energetically, and that when gold was formulated in a stream bed called placer gold, it was done with a movement of water down a valley floor would encounter various energy sources along the way. Water has a memory, and the water took on that memory of that particular energy that it would encounter. On certain streams, it was such that the memory pattern of that stream was such that it developed into a particle of gold. And to the best of my knowledge to this date, there are 3 different energies that must come together that will basically then move from an energetic state into a particle state. And that a particle state is now too heavy to float or too heavy to be what a memory is, and it now becomes real, and that particle drops out of suspension in the stream to the floor of the moving water. And as that basically is united, they have a valence of 3, so it means that they are basically attracted to their own kind. So these micron particles basically find each other and merge together, very similar to taking a little amount of oil and take a big mud puddle and dump the oil on the mud puddle. It'll separate into little boblets of oil. Leave it long enough and all those boblets will come together and form one.
And how did you come to numbers from that scientific part of it? Did you correlate numbers somewhere in there, or what was the next steps of that?
Well, I had a very dear friend who basically I was working with, and he said, he was a physicist, And he said, if you could only do it, he says, everything would become mathematics. So by this time, I'm a dowser and had been for many years. And so I was able to ask the question as to whether everything basically turns out to be frequency related and controlled by combinations of numbers.
I do understand the concept of the numbers. Are you saying the number, or is there like a formula that you just have to think about this? Because I was reading it and I found it very interesting. All right, so if you have a number for something, do you say if the numbers are 1, 2, 3, are you saying the numbers 1, 2, 3, or are you thinking the numbers 1, 2, 3?
No, you repeat it.
So, for example, you tell me to help me with my whatever issue. You give me number 1, 2, 3. So, do I take that number into meditation and just meditate on 1, 2, 3? Or
yes, you do.
Okay, so
not quite that simple, but along that line, yes. You just basically establish the presence, and that is done by repetitiously repeating the number, which is basically forming an intention, and that number basically then becomes real in your body or established, and its significance then basically becomes a reality. Let's assume that you had a condition and the number you needed, and how I determine that is that I basically ask the question of my dowsing, do you have an imbalance? Or are you balanced or imbalanced? And if it says you're imbalanced, then I say, give me a number that will eliminate that is causing the imbalance. And my rod that I hold, which is a welding rod, it's about the size of a coat hanger in diameter, and the rod will move on the free moving end. I hold it on one end and it's free to move on the other. The free moving end will move and say yes, or it won't move and tell me no. So I basically develop a number based on abnormalcy. Give me a number that will eliminate that is creating the abnormalcy. And the rod will say yes. So I start counting 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40. Let's assume the rod starts to move at 40. Then I go 41, 42, 43. The rod's still moving. 44, it quits. Okay, the first number is 43. Then I still go again. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 38, 39. And the rod quits moving at 39. So the next two numbers is 39. And I continue to do that until I have at least 11 numbers.
Wow, that's...
and then that number ends up being, in this particular case, if I can remember the numbers I used, but anyway, you get the idea that you just keep doing until you have 11, and then you go ahead and repeat those, and the abnormalcy in the body, which was reading abnormal, now reads normal.
When you're investigating something, so you're saying on behalf of this person, or is this something that a general about, like, for example, Sheryl had tonsillitis? Would you say Sheryl's tonsillitis, or is it just for tonsillitis?
I would identify her tonsillitis by, first of all, attempting tonsillitis. It may not give me tonsillitis because it may be just an inflamed throat. So then I realize she does have an infection in her throat. And so once I have identified that condition, then I'm able to develop a number to alleviate that infection, because she should have a number in her throat, as we all do, that is protecting her. But in her particular case, since she now has a problem there is no protection number. It's gone. So I'm able to establish through the tests we've done that she could use the number for eliminating throat infection. And so I give her the numbers to do that, and she reads that number generally about 7 times, and the throat infection disappears. The whole program basically operates very quickly, and it's very much like turning on and off light switches. You turn off a light switch and you're in the dark, or you turn on one and you're in the light. And the numbers work very quickly, even though she has what we consider a physical problem. The energy of it switches out very quickly as you counter it with an alternative energy. In this case, she'd be given the normal protection energy to protect her from a sore throat. And that would change her condition fairly quickly. Now, she may have a little swelling, and it may take a day or two before all the traces are gone, but it is very quick generally. But when you go beyond what I do and deal with it in the medical world, all you're really dealing with in a medicine is energy. The chemistry and the makeup of that energy basically is doing the same thing as the numbers are. Okay?
Okay.
I have a question. I can't just sit by. I have to pipe in every once in a while. And this is kind of a question that I showed up with today, in all honesty. As we do this work and my throat gets cleared, what about causality? So we've treated the throat and the imbalance in the throat, but what if my throat was congested for an emotional reason? What if I'm having trouble speaking up for myself? Or what if it's a physical reason and it's something else? How do you get to that?
Well, and it could very well be cancer. When we're determining, as medical often does, they'll treat you and then determine, oh, they're not treating you correctly. You've got to change your medication.
Ah, yes.
Okay, this is fascinating for me. What I can see from you doing, it's like the fractal is out of alignment, or the mathematical formula for the fractal was wrong. And sounds like what you're doing, you're finding the secret number, or...
Well, in our manual, of course, is made up of numbers. And basically, I just check and to see if you, in your particular case, if you don't have the protection number for a sore throat, then you have a sore throat. But let's say that you have a sore throat, and I could check you, and I determine, no, you've got the protection number for a sore throat. Then I look for cancer. And then, oh, you've got cancer. So you'll have a different number missing for cancer than you would for, say, a bacteria.
And please correct me if I say something wrong. You're imprinting the number, which is the mathematical formula of what it's like. That's your medicine, right? So that's the mathematical formula or the number that is going to resolve that issue, correct?
Well, the number I'm replacing is the number you should have. And I check you to see, and if you don't have it, then I replace it by you reading the number and putting it back in place.
Okay, and obviously I speak Spanish and English. Because you're just thinking about the number, it doesn't matter because you're not going by the toning sounds of the number, correct?
No, it's going by the intention. The whole program is probably nothing more than intention. And what little we understand about intention is probably monstrous. We probably are nothing but intention. There's perhaps as many as 1.2 million frequencies in the human body. Each one of them is like a major instrument in an orchestra. And if you have any one or more of those instruments missing, then the orchestra is incomplete. Now, it may not be big enough to affect the outcome of the music, but on the other hand, there may be enough missing that it does have an effect on the outcome of the music, and so the orchestra is playing less than perfect, although it's still able to operate. As your body is, you're a long way from being perfect. And so the consequence in the music is that your music isn't as good as it should be, and in the body, of course, your state of health is not as good as it should be.
Yeah, that sounds like where they talk about the body being in a certain frequency and that we have to be attuned to that frequency in order for our body to be healthy. I love this. And
it's actually about maybe 1.2 million frequencies, so you have a wide range of numbers to bring the body into balance, but sometimes you learn after a while that certain combinations of numbers basically do a lot to correct the problem. So you may have one or two numbers you have to do, and then the body gets active because you've made it more normal, and it basically does the balance of the work and brings your body back into balance. So you get a lot of help from the body in many cases by key numbers that control certain key functions.
Now, are you the only one doing this right now, or is there other people, or are you teaching other people, or what?
Well, I don't think that I have discovered anything that hasn't been known to man historically. So I guess I've just been enlightened as to how to do it. And I certainly, when I had my heart attack at 60, I was always able to douse. But after that, I just had a more in-depth answering process coming to me, so the whole function of what I did became even more pronounced. So I basically reached to a higher source in a very simple way, and it's all done by the rod. I ask the question, and the rod moves and says yes, or it doesn't move and says no. So everything I do is yes or no. Even in answering to develop a number, I'll ask, is it number 1? And the rod says no, 2, no, 3, no, 4, no, 5, yes. And so, okay, the first number is 5. And so everything I do is yes or no.
Lloyd, I want to ask you a question. You must have encountered some pretty interesting situations from people, because you do these readings, right? As well as you sell the manual at balancingbynumbers.com, but you also do readings. What are some of the more interesting things that you've been able to help people resolve using this system?
Well, probably the areas that we can do most help, and that is MS. MS is very difficult, I think, to be determined in many cases until it's well advanced, and then there's lesions develop in the brain and other earmarks in the medical field that they use to determine you have MS. Well, I just have to determine that your body energy is out of balance, and I can tell in a minute whether you're stem cell healing or you're not healing. And so we basically treat MS very effectively. And MS, primarily in my opinion, and this is always my opinion, is basically a matter of the hypothalamus, which is a major control panel in the body, takes on a state of operation abnormal to what it should be, and it basically sends out a signal, and the immune system gets the signal and determines from its understanding of the signal to attack the myelin sheath. Now, the myelin sheath is a covering over your nervous system, and so it starts to eat away at that and exposes the nervous system, and now you've got discomfort and pain, and ultimately you can become crippled and, and non-functional in many ways. So what we do is we scramble the message with a number that I developed from the hypothalamus, and we scramble that message that's coming, and it stops that process. That just stops immediately. So you're no longer being fed the information to the immune system that is attacking the myelin sheath. So that stops. Now you've got a healing problem on your hand because damage has been done, and so we activate stem cell healing, which is the body's natural healing ability, and we basically activate it, and it starts a healing process to repair the damage done by the immune system.
So you're working with clients to help reverse MS?
Oh, lots of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and they all get over it.
Oh my gosh. I know that MS is as unique as the person that has it. I've worked with some people that had MS, and some have more of this and less of that. It seems like it's this whole range of combination of things that can manifest in the body and be called MS. But that's just incredible work that you're doing.
Yeah, that is very effective. Cancer, we've always an ongoing effort to try to figure how to handle that. But my approach to cancer at the moment is to determine the body primarily is water, and it basically operates as an electrical system. The electrical system is made up of a certain energy level, which appears to be about 70 millivolts. And the 70 millivolts in a healthy person is part of the immune system. So we have developed a number that allows the millivolts to be raised to 150. At 150 millivolts, it would appear that cancer, or at least the nagulase, which is the consequence of cancer cells. It put off a product called nagulase, and this nagulase is the entity that attacks the immune system, which is more specifically described as GCMAF. And the nagulase attacks that, and it eats up the immune system till you get to a point where you basically now have no immune system and cancer has taken over. We're finding that if we raise the level of the millivolts to 150, that the nagulase does not like it and it fades away. And the GCMAF will return naturally to its protective role in the immune system.
So you're working with cancer, Lloyd. It's like how do people contact you? Do they use your website, or do they call you, or how do they find you?
Well, I don't have a website myself. There's people that have websites that put my information on it. Christine is perhaps one of them. And so I don't do any website work, and it's all word of mouth.
Word of mouth, huh? So do they just find you by your phone number, or just referrals? Somebody refers you, and that's the way you work?
They have many genius ways of finding how to get a hold of me, but I don't advertise, and so it's through that method. But mostly referral, one person, I'm sure, giving my number to others. But there are websites and programs now where I'm basically viewed showing how my work has been done.
Okay.
And so there's not hard to find me anymore.
When you found this work, you must have found that there's something unique about what you're doing. Did you just start connecting with people and going, hey, let me show you this numbers, or how did you come about? I'm kind of curious how you started spreading the message, because I've heard of numerology, but I've never heard of using numbers like this. And I've heard like fractals and various formulas like that to cure certain things or to help and assist curing something like that. But how did you start spreading the word? Just by helping people out?
Yes, I did a lot of touring earlier, and we would go to communities and treat people. They would come to designated facilities, be a hall or a home, and we would treat the people that wanted to be treated. So we did a lot of traveling at one time. We do very little anymore. I do most of it over the telephone. I'm just as effective over the telephone as I am in person, except I can control my time better on the telephone than I can when I go to a community and you've got 100 people that want to be treated. You're up against it. Where I could do the same 100 people, it may take me another half a day, but I can do so many a day, and they didn't have to come anywhere. So it works out very well.
So could we get the manual and then do our work ourselves, or is this something that it just has come naturally?
The manual is basically probably the trick of the whole thing is that I've been able to create these numbers on various people or various situations, and in doing that, I'm able to record the number in a manual, and we update it every 6 months with a mail-out update based on the work that we have done on people during that 6-month period. So it's a constantly evolving document with information, and it's generally quite easy to follow what the number's for. Now, how you might be able to use it is entirely up to one's ability to develop some means of getting an answer back, some means of dowsing or muscle testing or whatever would allow them to be able to take my information and determine whether it's necessary for themselves or somebody else to have that particular number. And their whole idea being that you don't have this number and you should have it. Every number in that manual should be in the human body, by and large. There's some exceptions to that, but by and large, that is what it is. It's basically a catalog of appropriate numbers.
It's like the Encyclopedia Britannica of your body, right?
That's right, yeah. Now, you'll get a situation in viruses that we may develop today to suit the need of today's virus may very well be 6 months down the road of no value. The virus has gone and mutated and changed, and there's a new virus number required. And that's one thing that's constantly evolving.
That was my next question. So things like the major viruses that you hear about there, like Ebola, and could you probably do something with that, you think?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Viruses that have no cures have a way to be, reversed, neutralized, completely removed? What do you call what happens?
You just counter the energy. You counter their energy with a frequency, a number that basically takes their energy away.
And I'm trying to remember.
You just overwhelm their energy with another energy.
The device I've heard, like Rife Technologies or Rife type technologies, isn't
Rife
that
Rife was right on, except in my basis, I operate slightly different than him, but very similarly.
And
in his particular case, he basically killed, he blew up that he determined to be bad.
Yeah, and he's the one that...
All I do is as I make something stronger, to basically overwhelm that I want to get rid of. So we basically go at it in a similar fashion.
And if I remember right, the Rife technology type, I am thinking of the same thing, the machine that does the electrical frequencies, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just had to make sure on that one.
Yeah, we're on exactly the same page.
Okay.
I'm able to do it physically. He did it with a machine.
I'm just thinking about all the viruses that people get the verdict from the doctor that you've got this thing for the rest of your life. And I'm amazed that we can basically say a series of numbers to ourselves for a series of however many times and overpower that virus. So that would make it go dormant, or that would make it leave, or that renders it...
In a simplistic form, you're just overwhelming its energy. The whole idea is to identify where the body's protection has broken down because its numbers are missing, and you basically replace them. And in the case of a virus, you have to figure out sometimes, okay, what is it that is attacking you? And so that means I have to develop a new number. And it takes me a few seconds to do that. And once I develop that, then you go ahead and read it, and what I may be identify that you have a virus, then all at once I identify you don't have a virus. You've read the number, say, 6 or 7 times, and you continue to do that for a day or two, and the virus is gone.
Wow, okay. So you basically neutralized it. So you did what medicine is doing, where...
Medicine's doing the same thing, except that you have no byproduct problem with the numbers. You do, because when I give you a number, I check myself, I check other people to make sure that they have that number. They're not sick, and they have that particular number, so it's safe to be in the human body. Well, in medicine, so very often the makeup of the medicine itself is more detrimental to the body than maybe the problem. So you have a problem with medicine in that it will, it can cause you a lot of side effects. The numbers won't do that.
If the numbers are making a side effect, then there's something else that we had to deal with. The other question I do have, with all these numbers, are you having to, there's different types of cancers, and does a cancer have a different number for a different person?
No. They may have a different type of cancer, and they would have a different number, perhaps. Let's say it's cancer of the throat or cancer of the small intestine. So you would have a numbers different in the different components of the body.
I see. Okay.
If yours was stomach cancer and a friend of yours had stomach cancer, you'd be on the same number. As a matter of fact, we treat cancer as one problem, and that's where we change the energy of the body and make it so high that it's too high for cancer to appear to survive. At least that's been our experience. And that's probably always the case as we try to make the natural protection in the body strong enough that it is basically overwhelms that that's trying to take over.
When you started doing this, what has been one of the most surprising things that you've learned about this, or do you feel pretty comfortable that everything out there's going to be a number for it?
Yeah, I'm terribly confident in the program. I'm very humbled by the fact that I can do what I can do. So I'm basically, it's more a matter of going, whew, than it is hurrah.
I can imagine, especially...
the pressure to help people that are sick and they're looking right at you. get me out of this. And it's a pressure business. I don't know why anybody, knowing what I know now, would ever go into medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a pressure business.
And I also wonder, if the body is doing that, I wonder if the environment and the earth and all of those have a certain number. I would be very curious about that too. Because
everything is numbers. I mean, that's the formation of metals is all done by certain numbers coming together, and the development of the metal comes out of it. So it's everything on Earth is numbers. Trees that all at once are losing their leaves. I can go and determine that tree has basically got a problem and determine what it is it needs to cure it, and I put my right hand on the tree, and I read that number, and the number passes through me, and pretty soon you can read the number in the tree. And a week or two later, new leaves are forming.
You're putting the energy of the number with the intention into the tree and healing the tree.
Yeah.
Well, that takes my next question. This works for pets then and animals, right?
In animals, you basically go through, and I'm able to determine if you have a stomach problem, do you have an intestine problem, do you have a cancer problem. You're doing the same thing with an animal as you do with a person. And then you just take your right hand and place it on their left-hand side. Your energy enters your body on the left-hand side of your body and exits the right side. So if you're exiting energy out of your body to treat something, it goes out your right hand. If you're basically putting energy into a person, you do it on their left-hand side, say their left shoulder.
Yeah, that's very. I hear that in the energy part of it, the energy work that I do, and also in a lot of shamanic ceremonies, a lot of the things that you're doing, you're just taking it into a numerical form. For example, on a shamanic ritual, you actually do an intention, and then you go through the ceremony. So it sounds like it's some powerful stuff you're working with here. I'm really glad you're sharing it with everybody in the world.
Well, the beautiful part about a number is it doesn't matter what language you do it in. It's basically the same number. So if your native tongue was, say, Spanish, and you're talking in English, and let's assume that as a Spanish linguist, you basically have to convert your thought from Spanish to English to come up with a number. You don't want to do that. You want to do the number in Spanish.
It's funny because they do say mathematics is the universe's language.
Yeah.
So you
will use a different, it'll sound different, the name of it will be different, but the amount of it will be just as good. But it gets very confusing if you try to translate in your mind and then do it in English form, although you're thinking it in Spanish. Say it in Spanish as well as think it.
Yes, I can definitely see that.
I had a doctor one time, we were working with a patient, and he had in Korea. So he could speak Korean, and so he was basically converting from English to Korean to treat this person. And he was having very little success. So I said, well, do it in English. He said, well, he doesn't speak English. I said, well, you can do it for him, but he would be able to do it by putting down the number, but write it out for him in Korean, so he's repeating in his native tongue.
That is so amazing. I love how this is really taking the entire world, and it can do wonders.
Well, it's really what the world is. I mean, everything in the world is nothing but energy and combinations of energy, which are all basically controlled by mathematical combinations.
Yeah,
I noticed if we can ever figure out all the combinations we need, but that has been my goal, is to do as much as I can while I'm here to basically leave that, and it will always be there, and I'm sure that it'll get added too.
Well, thank you for what you're doing there. And, one of the beauties about the work that you're doing is that it is universal, and like all this energy work, it's universal. And it also comes back to what I've heard, that everything's a fractal, and you're helping us heal that fractal or that energy within us. We have enjoyed everything you've been telling us, Lloyd. And is there any final thoughts? We always have a final thought that you'd like to share with the world. Is there something you'd like to leave a message for the world?
Well, it's basically, I think that the reality is that we deal with intention. In whatever we do, whether it's a pill, is sending an intention. We're doing it by a number, it's sending an intention. It's everything. Probably the biggest word of all the words in the world is intention, because that's really how we pass from a person from being sick to a person being well.
Amen. I'm just over here cheering. Yes, yes, yes. That's what I've been learning overwhelmingly the last 4 years is the power of intention is everything. We are just beginning to realize the power we have as beings with the intention that we create.
And it's a matter really of how do we perfect that intention so the message is best delivered.
Thank you so much for what you do. And Mario, you've been a great host today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun interviewing you, and thank you for giving us all this time, and we really do appreciate it.
Well, you know where I'm at, and if you have any questions or anybody needs some help, where it basically really pays off for the work I do is that I don't have to know what your problem is. I will just basically find that your body is abnormal, okay? And then I develop a number to get rid of what is causing the abnormality, and you read the number, and all at once you're normal, and you get better. I have no idea what I did. You have no idea what just happened.
Healing the world and not even knowing what's wrong with it, right?
I love it.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay, all the best.
Would you like to be a guest on a future episode of Exploring Possibilities? Drop me a note, info@journeyofpossibilities.com. Until next time, I'm Sheryl Sitts inviting you to joyful, awakened, authentic living naturally.